So today I want to show you where each of your steak cuts come from on an actual cow. I think it's really important that people know what they're eating and where it comes from. So the four main steaks that we have here in the UK are the rump, the fillet, the sirloin and the ribeye. The ribeye steak's my favourite and I'll tell you why a bit later on. So we've got this bullock here, he's really friendly, so hopefully he's going to stand still and let me show you. Okay, so starting off, we'll start with the rump steak. If you think rump steak, you automatically think backside or the back end of an animal. So people think back here, behind the leg. Actually, your rump steaks come a bit higher up. This area here, all of this muscle coming down behind the leg is used for roasting joints. So that's your top side joint, silver side and the round. And that's all of that big bit of muscle coming down the back. So when you're ordering a rump steak, what you're going to get is a slice of meat coming from this top section. So these muscles up here are used every time the animal wants to take a step or move somewhere. For that reason, they're tensing up a lot more throughout the day. That's going to mean it's slightly tougher steak compared to some of the others. Also, it's a nice big lump of muscle. These two factors will probably mean that it's one of the cheapest steaks you can order in a pub or restaurant. So next up, I'll show you where the fillet steak comes from. Your fillet steak is coming from this section of the animal here. So it's towards the back, but more in the middle section, near the hips. Both sides of the animal's spine, there's a bone running all the way throughout the middle of the animal towards its shoulders. Now for the sake of this, we'll call it the T-bone, because that's where your T-bone steak comes from. On the bottom side of the T-bone, towards the bottom of the animal, is where your fillet steak is. It's running as a strip about as big as your fist throughout from here, the hip bone, forwards towards the ribs. So that bit of muscle is your fillet steak, sliced up horizontally. Towards the back is the thicker end of the muscle, so that's where they're going to cut the really nice, expensive, tender fillet steaks. These muscles are only used when the animal turns and pivots. Therefore, they're not used that much throughout the day and then stay nice and tender. So as there's not that much meat from those two muscles, the fillet steak is the most expensive of all four. Now, on the top side of that T-bone is where you're going to find your sirloin steaks. So they're running it again, two lengths down either side, but they're nearer the top of the spine here. So this bit of muscle isn't as thick as the fillet. It's only a thin bit of muscle running on top of that bone. Similar to the fillet, it's nice and tender. It's not used that much and tensing throughout the day. So as I mentioned, that bone is T-shaped, and that's where you're going to get your T-bone steak in a restaurant. On the bottom side, you've got a small fillet steak, so it's a bit nearer the front of the animal. On the top side of that T-bone, you've got a sirloin steak, so it's a nice big steak. Sometimes if you get a bit of a thicker sirloin steak, that's often called a porterhouse steak or a New York. So moving on to the fourth and final steak, we've got the ribeye. The ribeye steak comes from further forward in the animal, towards its head. The animal's ribs are coming down here. As I run my hand there, I can feel where its ribs are. So as the name suggests, the ribeye steak is that eye of muscle at the top of the rib. You're going to get several ribeye cuts on either side of the animal, as it's got several ribs coming all the way down. So as the ribeye muscle isn't actively used in moving the animal around, it's going to be nice and tender and juicy. Also, as it's closely attached to the bone, it's going to have loads of flavour in there and stay nice and juicy. That's why for me, it's my favourite. The fat in there just makes it so tasty. So you may have seen on your menu, you can order a tomahawk steak. What a tomahawk is a ribeye, usually one of the bigger ones, but with that bone in, so it's not been butchered out the bone. You get a nice big bone, that's why they call it the tomahawk. Okay, so that's it for today, guys. I really hope you've learned something, or maybe you're just feeling a bit hungry. Regardless of what steak you order, make sure you're trying to buy local and support British farmers. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.